What's up, everyone? It's your boy, Chris Klim, founder and president of the A1 Sports Network, producer of the Moffat on the Mike Show, the big kahuna, the big cheese, the man who met Joey Chestnut, and I am coming back. I am back with the return of Klim's Corner. That's right. I'm going to try and do this on a daily basis. We are live right now on YouTube and on Instagram. So, if you got any questions, comments, anything about just generally anything you want to talk about, I'll be more than happy, whether it's on the YouTube comments or on our IG comments. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at A1 Sports Network for all our all of our content, etc. Tweets, Instagram pictures, whatever you name it, we got it. I wanted to do I usually do the I'm often on the mic on Fridays, but unfortunately we had to cancel today. So I found this. I thought this was a good opportunity to drop in Klim's Corner once again. So I'm gonna try and do my best. Look at both YouTube and Instagram. So if you're watching, please just give me a couple seconds to answer your questions. I'll get back to it as soon as I can. Um, we probably would have started the show out with I'm off at a mic with this, but we have to say RIP to Tom Seaver. He died a couple nights ago. You want to talk about tragic loss? It's baseball, and Mets fans definitely feel this one because this guy transcended the game. He was just otherworldly on the mound for the Mets. I mean, he was the main reason why the Miracle Mets won in '69. He was a fantastic, fantastic pitcher. He's the franchise, and for Mets fans in general, Tom Seaver was their first superstar. They started this season. They started their franchise in 1962. Tom Seaver got there, I believe, in '67, if I'm not mistaken. Just pulling up his stats real quick right now. Uh, he he started with the Mets in '67. He was a perennial All Star for the Mets. This guy was an absolute stud. He was the first Met to win a Cy Young. He he was just everything, man. This guy transcended the game of baseball, and at the when coming in at the age of 22 to play for the Mets, he really helped it out with that pitching rotation of him, Kuzman, and Nolan Ryan in '69. Really showed why the Mets won the World Series that year. They were an incredible team. In 1969, you had 25 wins, which you'll never see ever again. Probably you'll never see a pitcher with 25 wins, a 2.21 ERA, and he was just a fantastic pitcher, man. The way his delivery, everything about Tom Seaver was just phenomenal, man. In, in 1971, a 1.76 ERA. Back then, that's incredible. Anytime in baseball, that's incredible. You pitch under 2 ERA, fantastic. Look, he up until Mariano got in, he was the closest to a unanimous decision for the Hall of Fame. I think Seaver was 97 or 98%. Not really sure on the top of my head, but there's a reason why he got that many votes because he was that damn good. Seaver was just again a transcending game of he was transcended baseball. He was fantastic, and it really sucks for Met fans, like I said, because probably up until Keith Hernandez, Dallas until the '86 team, Tom Seaver was the New York Mets. That was the face of the New York Mets. Probably until as great as Keith Hernandez was for the Mets, he didn't start with the Mets. And I would love to say Dak and Doc and Darryl were the same thing, but with all the drug problems and them not staying with the Mets that long, you can't really say it was Doc. So probably up until David Wright got into the Mets, it was when it was Tom Seaver was the last guy born. He was brought up through the system, and great as Mike Piazza was too. Piazza and Seaver were the last two to throw a pitch out at Shea Stadium. As great as Mike Piazza was, he 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 didn't start his thing. So it's something different when these players come through the system and then they play phenomenally like Tom Seaver, David Wright. Doc and Darrell. We're seeing it now with DeGrom and McNeil and Conforto and these guys. It's different. It just hits home different. But again, Tom Seaver, all around phenomenal player, and it really sucks that it took until now, not now, but like last year or a year or two ago, whenever it came out that that Tom Seaver had really bad Alzheimer's, like really bad, like he didn't even know that. It then it was then that the Wilpons, the jackasses at the yard decided, oh, you know what? Now we'll make Seaver Way or whatever the street name is called, or now we'll put a statue in front of Citi Field. That should have been done years ago. That should have been done when Shea Stadium was still built. It was just a disgrace that it took him that long to have this disease. It took them that long for Tom Seaver to get this disease to do all this stuff for him. If that was the Yankees, they would have had a statue in front of the Yankee Stadium years ago. It's just really sad that as Mets fans, this is the greatest player to ever play in a Mets uniform, and it's really sad that he left this earth. On to something else. The other day, I mean not the other day, last night, the Nets found their new coach for the season, and it is surprisingly not anyone I would have expected, but it is Steve Nash, former point guard, NBA champ, etc. He was one of the best point guards to ever do it. This came as a little shock to me, just because of the fact that when everyone was talking about, oh, who's going to be the next coach for the Brooklyn Nets, names like Greg Pop were coming up, Mark Jackson, Tyronn Lue, guys who's coached before in the NBA. And the fact that Steve Nash comes out of the blue, they came out of the blue and signed him. It was just like, it was a bit of a head scratcher. But the Nets have done this before, man. They even with Jason Kidd back in 2014, I believe. They signed him to be that net. Oops, they signed him to be the next head coach for the Nets, and it didn't really work out. But it was something like Steve Nash is something else in the game of basketball. I always like the point guards like this, like a point guard like Jason Kidd and Steve Nash. They were almost identical in how they played. He has a great IQ. He knows how to knows how to run a basketball team. He's been around the league time and time again with different teams. So with this, I get it, but the reason I'm really like talking about this is not that it's like yeah, it's big news that Steve Nash is, but what's driving me crazy, and I saw it twice today, and this is one of the reasons why I really hate Stephen A. Smith. It's he commended Steve Nash. If there was one person to get this job, it'd be Steve Nash. But there was two things I saw. One was by Stephen A. Smith, and one was an article I saw on Facebook. And it drives me crazy when this shit happens. It was like he basically was race baiting that oh, they should have hired a black coach, an African American coach. I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. Okay, look, me and Craig have talked about this time and time again. There's no racism I can't. Let me rephrase that. I can't say there's no racism. I generally have no idea. But you can't tell me that Steve Nash got hired mainly because he's white. You can't say that because look, I understand there were coaching candidates like Tyronn Lue, Mark Jackson, Sam Cassell. There were names out there, that were men of color who were candidates for be this job, but the Nets decided to go with the white guy and the guy who has no coaching experience. I hate when people play racism like that. Well, let me first start it off like this. If you mean to tell me Kevin and Kyrie had no say in this head coach, you're absolutely nuts. Okay? First of all, they're the ones who wanted to get Kenny Atkinson out of there. Okay? And they made Jacques Vaughn, that was the interim head coach. If you mean to tell me Kevin and Kyrie had no say in who this general manager is, not general manager, who this next head coach was going to be, you're absolutely nuts. Okay? It's not look, and you want to brace him, whatever. It's they're going to control this team. Kevin and Kyrie are going to control this Nets team. Okay, they're the ones who got Kenny Atkinson out of there. It's insane to think that because he's white, he got the job. We should have hired more African American head coaches. That's not the reason at all. We've seen Sean Marks on how he's been running this franchise. He's been doing a phenomenal job at it. Okay, so it's definitely not George Marks, and I don't think it's the owner of the Nets either. Okay, and I said it the same thing like in the NFL. Eric Bieniemy, yeah, is the one exception who should probably have a head coaching job. Okay, but if they hire a white guy over an African American guy, it's not because of racism. I would say 85. I don't know. I can't say like it's not because of racism, but my best guess is to say that this is who they thought would be the right person for the job. It's not skin color or anything. I don't care if you're black, white, green, yellow, purple, blue. I don't care what color. If I believe you can coach basketball or coach football, I'm gonna hire you as my head coach. That's just what it is. And there are good African American head coaches I'll say for football. I'm not really sure in the basketball world off the top of my head, but for Mike Tomlin, Anthony Lynn, Tony Dungy was a great head coach. Lovie Smith was a great head coach. Just because there aren't that many doesn't mean a thing. And I hate that people have to bring it right. And that's what I hate about Stephen A. Smith, because he's a race baiter. He's a race baiter. That's all Stephen A. Smith is. He's a headline grabber. And he's doing a great job at it, because that's why he gets paid millions of bucks. He's absolutely terrible at what he does. Stephen A. Smith is a clown. He's a clown. I mean, because this is not the reason why that Steve Nash got hired. It's not the reason. Look, the Warriors did it. Look, they fired Mark Jackson. I think they should have kept Mark Jackson, but Mark Jackson, probably like Kenny Atkinson, took that team as far as they can go. The Warriors brought in Steve Kerr, and look at this. They've been the best team for the past gajillion years, it feels like. They're a team. They're a dynasty team because of the way Steve Kerr coached. He was able to bring them to that next level. Not that Mark Jackson didn't do a great job. Mark Jackson did a great job. Same thing with Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson did a great job. But you can only take a team so far like that, and that's why they went out and hired, they hired Steve Nash. If you mean to tell me that Kyrie Irving couldn't bring in his former head coach on the Cavaliers, won the NBA championship with him, Tyronn Lue? Again, you're absolutely nuts. It's not a race thing, and that's what drives me freaking crazy. And that's really why I wanted to come on and talk today, too. Because it's not a race thing when it comes to picking head coaches and whatnot. It is flat out who I think will lead my team to the NBA championship or do better in the NBA playoffs. Because you saw this past two seasons with the Nets. They made it to the first round. They were unfortunate in not being able to get past the next round. Granted, this year's a little different. You didn't have Katie. You didn't have Kyrie. You didn't have Dinwiddie. You basically playing with Karis LeVert and a bunch of bench players, which is fine though, because they still made it to the first round. They put up a fight against the Raptors. I wouldn't say they got blown out, but I mean they put up a fight. They put up big numbers. But this is what it is. Like Sean Marks knows what he's doing. He's been proving that he can run this franchise very well as the GM. So him picking Steve Nash is not a race thing. It's just who they think and who Kyrie and Katie want there too. Because I think in all ends, if you really wanted the perfect head coach here, it's Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich would have been the perfect head coach. But clearly, that's not the case here. Okay? Clearly that, Katie and Kyrie, we all knew how to say in it, and that's fine. If Katie and Kyrie are picking this head coach, I have no problem with it, because we saw it work with the Cavaliers when LeBron James and Kyrie and Kevin Love basically picked Tyronn Lue to be their head coach. And what do you know? They went to the NBA championship. Again, if you mean to tell me Kyrie, who knows Tyronn Lue, who's played for Tyronn Lue, won a championship for Tyronn Lue, couldn't get Tyronn Lue in here, you're absolutely nuts. You're absolutely crazy to think that this is a race thing because it's not a race thing. And I get it. Maybe that's why you're thinking it because of the time we're living in right now with all the Black Lives Matter and support the police, all this stuff going on. Look, I support Black Lives Matter. I support everyone, etc. down the road. Me and Craig, we've talked about this time and time again. You know, we support Black Lives Matter, but we also support the police. Is I This is 110% not a race thing, and that's why I had to come because I saw it twice today. It really angered me. Stephen A. Smith, I get. I could have went on my day with Stephen A. Smith because that's just what he does. He's a race baiter. This is what gets him the headlines. This is what gets him the big bucks. I get it. But I saw a couple articles on Facebook that people wrote in I forgot where from. But that's what really set me off. I'm like, this is not a race thing. This is absolutely not a race thing. They figured them, Sean Marks, George Desai, Kevin and Kyrie all probably got on a phone call, Zoom meeting, or whatever it was, met these head coaches, and they figured Steve Nash is the perfect head coach for this position. And and this is just a new thing in general within all sports too. You've been seeing this through MLB, NFL, everything. You get in these coaches who are first time head coaches, and they're doing great. They're doing great things. Perfect example, Sean McVay. Sean McVay had no head coaching experience before going to the Rams. And then he takes the Rams to the Super Bowl. Same thing with the Yankees. Look at the Yankees. Aaron Boone, first time manager, go to the AL East championship game. Granted, the Astros cheated, but they still went there. They were there. AJ Hinch, before the whole cheating scandal, won the World Series. Alex Cora won the World Series. Granted, those two teams cheated, but you still got to get to the World Series to do it. They got him there. Then I'm excited to see where this goes because for those who followed Steve Nash's career, he was an incredible guy, very humble. Everyone loves this guy. This is a guy everyone can get behind, and they can learn from. He was a floor general when he was out there. He wasn't the flashiest player. He wasn't the 25 point scorer, but he was the guy who knew how to lead a team, who could pass you the ball and knew where your team had to be, where those guys had to be in that minute. And that's what made Steve Nash such a good point guard. And I always liked this, point guard move being the head coach. And and you've seen it time again. That's why Jason Kidd was a head coach because he probably just couldn't coach, but the way Jason Kidd asserted himself on the floor on the basketball court was why then it's originally hired him as the head coach, and that's why maybe the Bucks hired him as the head coach after that. So I'm excited to see where this goes with him. And again, it's not a race thing. It's absolutely not a race thing. And for all those you think you have generally no idea how to think. And look, I'm not saying I know how to run a franchise because I don't. If I did, that's where I would be. I wouldn't be doing that. I might be doing this, but I would be making a lot more money than what I am now if I knew how to run a franchise. But it's not a race thing. It's absolutely not a race thing. Sean Marks, George Tsai, Kevin and Kyrie, DeAndre Jordan, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen all probably had a say in who they want to be this next head coach. And they all agreed, whether they liked it or not, they all agreed that Steve Nash was going to be the perfect fit for this team in the upcoming 2020-2021 season. End of story. It's not a race thing, and that's what I really had to get off my chest today because it bothered me a lot when I read and heard all those articles. Next thing, Leonard Fournette found a new home with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know too much about why the Jaguars let go of Fournette or why they were even trying to let go. Because from what I heard, they were trying to get draft picks and no one wanted him. Maybe it's because he has too many miles on him. He's been hit a lot. I mean, that guy was a day one starter when he got to LSU, so he obviously has a lot of miles on him from the get go. He's still a talented running back. Still talented. He had I know he had over 1,000 yards in his rookie year. Not really sure. I'm pretty sure he had over 1,000 yards last year as well. I'm pulling up his stats right now. Just give me a hot second. Yeah, he had 1,152 yards last year with 3 touchdowns. Now, the touchdowns aren't that sexy, but he played on the Jaguars. I'm not really surprised. That's That's the only touchdowns he had. But he still had 1,152 yards. That's still crazy. And 522 receiving yards, which means he's versatile. So I don't know why the Jaguars needed to release him at the age of 24 years old, but this is a perfect fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, they were ready to run into the season with Ronald Jones II as their starting running back. I'm not a real big fan of his, but that's what they were running to do. And I was like, okay, they're going to pass most of the time anyway, so he's a good receiving back. But the fact that you now have a running back that Tom Brady has probably never have had like that, probably since Lawrence Maroney. And Lawrence Maroney was probably the only 1,000-yard running back I think Tom Brady's ever played with. Besides what's his name? Kevin Falk. Kevin Falk was really good. And Corey Dillon. But those guys weren't on the same level as what Leonard Fournette is. Leonard Fournette is a different kind of running back. That guy was a man in high school. He was a man in college. And now that he's playing with the big boys, he's still playing like a man. And then you look at this offense now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard. I'm pretty sure he's still on the team. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Like that, this is the best offense in the league. I don't care what anyone says. I say, oh no, he's overrated. This guy's overrated. There's a reason no, there's not. There's not. There's absolutely not. No reason why. This offense is, I would not be surprised. Look, I trust Bruce Arians knows what to do on offense. This Tampa Bay team is going to be very, very lethal in the upcoming season. It's crazy to really think about this. What this offense is. You have arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. I think Mike Evans is such an underrated wide receiver, man. He doesn't get enough credit because he's easily probably right up there with DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Thomas. That's how good he is. And even Chris Godwin last year, boy, he came out of nowhere. He put on a freaking show last year. That's how good he showed out. And plus, Gronkowski's back. If everyone thinks that Gronk lost a step or anything like that, you're absolutely nuts again. Gronk did not lose a step. He took a year off, and he's going to play exactly the same, especially with Tom Brady right there. You're absolutely nuts to think anything otherwise. If you think Leonard Fournette's overrated, again, you're nuts too. Just because he had 3 touchdowns last year. No, you have no idea what the hell you're even talking about then. He averaged 4 yards every time he touched the ball. He had 1,152 yards and 522 receiving yards. That's great. That's fantastic. If he had more touchdowns, he probably would have been a first team. He probably would have been first team NFL. That's it, really. Because other than that, he had played it. He had a healthy season, missed 1 game. And even in his rookie year, he had over 1,000 yards with 9 touchdowns in 13 games. What? Incredible. This guy's a great running back. I don't know why. I don't know why the Jaguars got rid of him. Doesn't make any sense to me, but this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team will be a lethal team coming into the 2020 season. And my last topic I'm going to talk about, I put this up a few weeks ago on the A1 Sports Network Instagram page. I asked all my Marvel fans out there, who is Sam Darnold? Who is Captain America's real friend? And almost everyone voted for Bucky to be the best friend. And I get why you guys picked Bucky, because it is Bucky, they grew up together, blah, 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 blah. Hear me out. And for the few people that picked Falcon / Sam Wilson to be a friend, I agree with you 110%. And here's why. When Captain America came back at the end of Endgame, we all saw, him. We saw him go back in time to put back the Infinity Stones, and we saw him return as an old man because he stayed in 1942 or 40, whenever he got frozen. He came back. He lived his life out with Peggy Carter. Okay, when he came back, Sam and Bucky both walked over to Captain Steve Rogers. They were talking to him, and Captain America gave Sam Wilson the Captain America shield. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. Really think about it. he could have easily gave it to Bucky, his quote unquote best friend. And I get maybe that Sam was his best friend when he got uniced, and he was living there. Sam was the first friend you meet. You saw him on your left when he's running around the Washington monuments and everything like that. Maybe that's why. But if Bucky really was his quote unquote best friend and now he's turned good guy and he's part of the Avengers, why didn't he give it to him? Here's another hot take too with that. I'm pretty sure, Steve Rogers, he went back in time clearly, because he wanted to live his life with Peggy Carter. That was the love of his life. He wanted to live his life like it was supposed to, not this life. Why didn't he take Bucky back with him? He could easily brought him back. I'm pretty sure Bucky wants to live back in the 40s with everyone. And I'm pretty sure Bucky didn't want to live in this time, with this arm and everything like that. I'm pretty sure he would love to go back in time and find and live his life with his quote unquote best friend and do it all and do that with him. But no, Captain America didn't do that. And that's why he gave the shield to Sam, because Sam and Captain America are more best friends than Captain America and Bucky Barnes. And you can even say maybe it's the fact that he watched people. Captain America watched Bucky unknowingly as the Winter Soldier. This was when he's still being brainwashed, like kill people and do all this harm to all these other people, and kill Tony Stark's parents. Maybe that's why. Maybe that could be a reason why that he just doesn't trust him anymore. But matter of fact is it's not Bucky Barnes that with the Winter Soldier that is Captain Rogers. It's Sam Wilson. There's a reason that Captain America gave the shield to Sam and to become the new Captain America over Bucky. It's because they are more best friends and he likes them more than him. That's the reason why. And I know all the Marvel nuts who are watching now and who are either going to watch later or whatever it is, they're going to disagree with me because they talk about I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Maybe that's true. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe because I watched all the Marvel movies in 17 days. Maybe that's why. And I only watched a handful back a couple times. Maybe I got to watch more. But you mean to tell me that Bucky is uh, Steve Rogers' best friend? You're absolutely nuts. He's not. It's not. It really isn't, and I'm really sad to say that because I like Bucky. I like him a lot. I love the Winter Soldier. I think he's a great superhero. But Sam Wilson is his true best friend. The Falcon, Sam Wilson is Captain America's true best friend. That's all I have to say about that. On that note, that'll do it for this edition of Klim's Corner. Glad to be back doing this on YouTube and on IG Live. Make sure, again, you follow us on the A1 Sports Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube as well. Again, make sure you check out our other podcasts that we have on the network. Top Pair Podcast been producing crazy the past couple weeks with all the playoff hockey going on. Make sure they got the absolute best hockey podcast out there. And if you want to listen to the show I do with Craig Moffat at Moffat on the Mic, we do go live every week. Usually, I usually tweet it. We usually tweet it out for people to know when we're going out there. We usually do 2 to 3 shows a week. You can also find us and Top Pair at Moffat on the Mic too. Everywhere on social media. You can find our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts. That's where we're at. But make sure you do all that. Again, thank you for everyone who joined in tonight and who's going to watch later on Klim's Corner. I'm glad to be back. And that'll do it. Everyone, have an A1 day.